Hey guys, it's Rose with another Rosie Concepts video, and today we are going over editing. I know, kind of boring, but super important. Yes, editing is putting in fades, trimming stuff up, and can be tedious, but today I'll be showing you some ways to use those necessary editing skills to do something creative and impactful. I'll be showing you guys the techniques behind keeping the timing of your tracks on the grid. In the end of the song Rubidoux, all of the instruments are lined up perfectly and hitting the downbeat at the exact same time. It has an impactful effect and is super cool to listen to. But if those instruments hadn't been exact, it wouldn't have had near the same effect. Today, I'm going to show you how to make sure your instruments and tracks are on the grid when they need to be. So, to preface this tutorial, I want to say that keeping things in exact timing is not always necessary. Sometimes keeping that live, authentic feel is what's most effective. But as we're shown on Robbers and Cowards, making things exact can also add that driving feel that gets us so pumped up during a song. Also, sometimes a musician has just been playing way too long and isn't hitting the timing well enough, and you need to help them out. It happens. When I say the grid, what I mean is the beats in each measure of a song. Quantizing is something that you can use with MIDI, which shifts all of your notes to the grid. Quantizing itself means correcting and can be used on vocals, like in autotune, to correct the pitch. But when talking about timing, it shifts all of your notes to a predetermined timing grid. It's a super helpful tool when available. If you're recording live audio and quantizing won't work, there are other options. Whether you forgot to have them play to a click, they didn't want to play to a click, or the timing is just off enough to be bothering you, manual editing is possible. I'm going to bring up some tracks that I recorded earlier without a click, and I'll show you how I'm going to put them back on the grid. Alright, so here's the session that I'm going to show you how to work with the grid and manual editing and that type of stuff. First, I'm going to show you what to do when you maybe forgot to use a click or didn't want to use a click while you were recording. Sometimes it's nice to have the grid markers exactly where they're supposed to be or be able to count along with the bars and beats up top. So, if you just need to get a better visual of that going, then one thing that you can do is just use the tap tempo, which you just come over here, turn on your conductor, put your cursor into the tempo spot, and you can just press play, and then you tap your T key over and over again along with the beat of the song, and the computer figures out what tempo you're playing at and it averages out for you like this. So, as you can tell, it sort of goes around between 148 to 143, 153. And so you think, oh, well, it doesn't exactly know, but basically, I'm not a professional drummer. I can't get the tempo exactly. And since maybe we didn't play with a click, it's not going to be exact, but we can average out where we think it is, which I'm going to call 150. Press enter. Now your tempo, as you can see, the grid changes. You're at 150 again. Now, if that's all that you needed was to get a better visual going and be able to count along with your bars and beats up top, then it's a really easy fix actually to do that. In the end, it's pretty convenient. But if you wanted to do something else with more manual editing and trying to get your hits more on track with each other, then there is some other things that you can do. I'm going to show you this part of the session where this is my keyboard track and all the instruments are obviously trying to hit at the same time. And this chunk of them are just a little bit off in their timing. So I'm going to let you listen to that real quick. So it's not very noticeable. It probably doesn't have to be edited that deeply, but for the sake of trying to get things exact, I'm going to show you guys the transients going on here. So as you can tell, the more you zoom in, you can actually see the difference between this transient of the piano and the transient of the overhead and the drums. So what I'm going to do is show you how to move the tracks around to try and line them up better. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to make sure my tab to transient function is on. That lets me press the tab button and the cursor will move to wherever the next transient on that track is. So I press tab, puts me right at the beginning of the sound wave section that I need to move, and I make a break right there. Then I move over using tab to the next transient and make another break. What this does is it gives me this clean audio wave right there that I can move around to line it up to wherever I need to. So I'm going to move that over a little bit so that I can move it. And I'm going to zoom in because I do want to be pretty exact with this type of stuff. So when you look at it up front, you think that you should line it up with this transient, which is what I was working with at first. But then as I listened to the track and looked at it really zoomed up for a while, I realized that this was actually more of the build up in the drums, and the actual hit that I want to line up with is this smaller transient right there. So it is important to listen to this and make sure that you're lining up things correctly, because things can be really noticeable when you start shifting around audio waves and suddenly everything's way out of time than it was before. So I'm just going to grab this and move it right in line with that. And now that keyboard hit's going to be pretty much in time. You could zoom in and probably try and line up your peaks and valleys a bit more, but I'm not going to do that right now. Next, I'm going to line up the next one. So again, tab to transient, make a break, and then I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this one. And then because I am moving it backwards, I want to trim up this end so that I'm not eating into another track as I move things. So I'm going to trim it up a bit more than I think I'll probably need, just so that I know that I'm safe. And I can bring it back out later. Just going to move that. And what I'm not trying to get the beginning of this track lined up with the beginning of that track. I'm trying to get the peak of this track lined up with the peak of that. So I'm working with this bubble right here, and I'm trying to get it lined up with that bubble right there, which is just about right there, I would say. And then I can come back over here, and as you can see, I didn't need to get that much editing space, but made me feel better when I was moving things. Next, we're going to do the last hit that was slightly out of time. And move over to the transient. There we are. And make a break. Not do that. Just trimmed out my track a little bit there. Then I'm just going to move this over a tiny bit. As you can see, the peak of this is really right here. It seems like it's not quite lined up, but that's really where I want it, actually, a little bit more that way. Then I can come back over here, move that out a little bit, make sure I'm not messing up anything on the other track. And now I'm going to show you what that sounds like with those edits in it. So as you can tell, they're much more lined up, and it didn't seem like they were very far off, but as soon as you hear them perfectly in time, you can tell, oh, they were slightly late, they were slightly too soon. But another thing that you might be hearing are these little breaks right here. Whenever you do manual editing like this and you leave in complete silence in between where there was noise, you at least need to put some fades. You might be able to put something else in between them if you wanted to use your TCE time stretch. This might be a good time for those very small points because it is a very touchy control. But what I'm going to do is just put some fades in here so that we don't hear any pops or clicks as they transfer over. So what I would think is, oh, just put the fade right there, right? But now we're sort of fading into where our hit was, and it's not going to be as direct as we want it to be. So I'm going to stretch this out and pull the fade over so that I know I'm not ruining my transient that I just spent time trying to get back in. Fading the ends is a lot less worrisome. Stretch that over. And as you can see, it basically kills anything in this beginning section, so it's not like you're bringing other sounds back into it that you already cut out. I do like to zoom in a lot when I do my edits because I'm not the best at guesstimating, honestly, and so I do need to be able to see pretty well what I'm doing. Some people are really good at that, but I am not. Not yet. I'm just going to go back over, and this is the last little section. This one's pretty easy. Small fade there. Small fade, and then I'm just going to bring those right together. Okay, zoom way back out, and we can listen to it with the fades now. So you might not have been able to hear the pops and clicks with all of those instruments because there are a ton of layers to this song right now. But especially if the keyboard was soloed, you would have heard random silence been thrown in there and little bits where you could hear it cut off randomly. So the fades are going to make it sound a lot smoother. The hits are way more on time now. We have a grid because we tap tempoed it into the correct time. And this is going to be a lot easier to work with and a lot easier to mix after this. Obviously, timing is a pretty important thing in music, so knowing how to fix it is an indispensable skill. Like I'm often saying, being creative with these things is always an option. So maybe you have something that's already in time that you want to take artistically out, or randomly pick a different time grid to quantize your melody to. There's more to timing than meets the eye. Go ahead and comment if you have an idea about a creative way to use editing, and I'll see you guys next time with another Rosie Concepts video. See ya!